Adolf Hitler, an astrological portrait by Ciro Discepolo. First of all, the intercepted sign Libra, with his Sun, Venus, and Mars in the seventh house, plus a Libra ascendant. This could have led him to a life focused on either love or war. But obviously, as I've explained many times in my other books, when there are harmonious and disharmonious stars in the same house, the latter prevail. Furthermore, we must never forget that every horoscope must be contextualized, historically, geographically, politically, and above all, socially. This damned former Austrian corporal, one of the most horrifying scourges in the entire history of humanity, the great Umberto Veronese said he could not be a believer, for two reasons: the existence of cancer and the Holocaust. Spent the years immediately following his 20s in a Germany devastated by the merciless surrender conditions of the First World War. France and its other allies inflicted an exorbitant price on Germany, and indeed millions of men, women, children, and elderly people literally suffered from hunger and every kind of constraint after the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. The climate in Germany after the advent of the Weimar Republic, with inflation comparable only to that of today's Venezuela, was admirably described by Ingmar Bergman in the film The Serpent's Egg. In that film, among other things, specifically regarding inflation, we see a customer eating a steak in a dive, and while he eats it, the innkeeper writes on the blackboard minute by minute how much it costs. In practice, people went out shopping, a few potatoes with suitcases full of banknotes. Here the three dominants of the subject come into play, especially Uranus at the ascendant, his revolutionary component, then the very close conjunction of Mercury at the descendant, cunning, and finally Saturn in the 10th house conjunct the midheaven. First an enormous ambition, and then the steep fall resulting from a relatively easy seizure of power. The young Adolf, using excellent dialectics and a communicative style that came from the close conjunction of the Moon and Jupiter in the third house, with strong angular aspects, capitalized on the discontent of millions of German citizens, and introduced in his first small street rallies the virus of racial hatred towards the Jews, whom he accused of being rich and responsible for the famine in Germany. Historians have explained all this much better and in detail, but in short, this is what it was, above all. Hence his success, based primarily on hatred, Sun and Mars in the seventh house, toward both internal enemies, Jewish bankers and Jews in general, and external ones, the French, who had to be made to pay. The rest is history. But let's not fail to note another very important element: the close Neptune-Pluto conjunction in the 8th house, which pushed him with all his might toward genocide, the extermination of an entire people, the Shoah, but also toward internal massacres when, with the war already lost, he ordered his generals to resist where there was nothing left to resist, and in doing so decreed the deaths of hundreds of thousands of other Germans, including the Hitler Youth, countless adolescent children sent to their deaths in the name of the Third Reich. Last but not least, and let us note something that historians have informed us about. Several young women who had very brief sexual relationships with the Führer killed themselves, and he preferred violent sex. Undoubtedly the very close Venus-Mars conjunction in the 7th house. Ciro Discepolo, many, many years ago.